good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 then of Mantripp Meets. And, we'll talk about tonight's guest in a moment, but wow, what a week it has been for birthdays this week, because I think it started on Tuesday, didn't it, with the powerboat legend that is Billy Seabold. Can't believe that Billy turned 80 on Tuesday. Then, of course, it was Ron Howes. I think, well, when was that? Yesterday, 93 years old, Ron Howes. And, again, you wouldn't put that age to Ron. He's still doing very, very well. So, happy birthday to both of those. But today, one person turns an age, and I'm not sure how old that is because he doesn't tell me. And this person is Fred Emney, and Fred has been a big part of the show over the last 3 weeks because behind the scenes, Fred has been working tirelessly with the photographs that you see in the slideshows. So happy birthday, Fred, and thanks ever so much for what you do. But there is one other birthday, and this birthday is our birthday boy. He is the guest of the show tonight, Mr. Ray Birnie, and we will talk to Ray in a moment. But let's just have a look at Ray in action. Wow, can't believe that Ray Birnie turns 71 today. I don't know about you, but I can not wait to see Ray Birnie's hair because he's been in lockdown. For however long we've been in lockdown, it's been a couple of months, maybe 3 months, is it nearly? Ray's hair is always a little bit excitable, isn't it? But let's say hello to Ray and first of all wish him happy birthday. So Ray, hello. Ray,
Hi,
what's going on with the hair?
Hi all. Well, that's just one of those things.
Haircut urgently required is what it says if you can't see it on your screens. But and name your own price. I want to know where you got the hair dye from, Ray.
That's getting desperate now, mate. That's getting desperate now.
It does look. Oh, and also some dental work needed. So there we go. Must be COVID secure and no cowboys.
Well, yeah, but there's a little story about that. I didn't go to the dentist for a few years, let's say, and when I went, about half my teeth had to be pulled out, which was fine. We had a plan, or the guy had a plan for bridges, etc. And then COVID struck, didn't it? So
there we go. So you joined the likes of Shulver, Barry Turner, I think John Masters, and also me, because luckily mine's hidden away.
But I'm in good company, mate.
You joined the list of toothless champions.
That's it.
Well, first of all, happy birthday. 71 years old.
Yeah.
How do you drive a boat at that age so fast still? We'll ask that probably in a bit.
With no teeth.
With no teeth. Well, it's you might have to put a little bit more weight in the front now to counterbalance the tooth loss, perhaps.
Yeah, well, some people always reckon I was a bit excessive with the trim, so we'll work on that this season.
So we'll talk about powerboat racing. We'll talk about this boat lark. How did it start? Where did it start? When did you first become involved in boats, and not necessarily power boats, Ray? Not, just you
Oh.
seem to have a love for water.
Well, definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to get into star signs or that nonsense, but I am Pisces, whether that means anything. But yeah, I mean, I was 18 and I just fancied a boat. So we ended up with a little sailing dinghy, not a particular class of dinghy, just a home built thing. A mate of mine, we ended up round, I lived in Essex at the time, so we ended up behind Lee Station, which is Two Tree Island, and there's a great big long slipway there. So we managed to get the sails up when we launched, but honestly, we didn't have a clue, not a clue. And we set off and we just got blown across the bay and ended up in the dinghy racks at Lee Sailing Club. And we were stuck fast until I worked out that you can't sail into the wind. You have to kind of go 45 degrees one way or the other. But we got out of that. But yeah, I mean, that was it so that was 1968. A couple of years later, I found myself in the south of France on a holiday and walking along the beach with my cousin, actually. There was a guy there. He had just a ski boat, not like what it is now with all the bananas and the parachutes and all that sort of going. This was just a plain couple of skis, 10 francs, 3 tries, or if you were experienced, a trip around the bay. And I thought, I'll have some of that. And went off a couple of times, fell off a couple of times, and the guy told me what I was doing wrong. So listened to him. And by the time the holiday came to an end, I was getting pretty good at it, really. And, coming into the beach, all flash on the 2 skis, stepping out of them, falling flat on your face, in front of the
So
French
you've
girl.
obviously learned the hard way, because water skiing, I always think, you see them on TV, they water ski race, don't they, sort of in Hunstanton, Kings Lynn, and it always looks difficult. And how hard is that water when you hit the water at whatever miles an hour?
Well, funny you should say that, because if we fast forward to my 3rd boat, we're now into the offshore race boats, the old 1960s offshore race boats. And we used one 16-footer with 100 Merc on the back as a ski boat. And we were now operating, and I was now living in Holdbridge in Essex, and we were operating on the River Crouch. And it's interesting you mention that, because there was one day particularly where we came round to turn in front of my friend's house, which was the edge of the speed limit. We turned, and as I turned, you go out the side of the wash. Everybody knows you're probably doing like a third, half faster than the boat. I hit a lorry wheel and tire, which was floating in with the tide just below the surface, like that. I hit it and I just went off, and you're like a bouncing bomb. You're like Barnes Wallace's bouncing bomb until you slow down enough to enter the water. You're just like a skimming stone. So yeah. The other time I came off at high speed was one night when we were mucking about with my boat, jacking it up with bits of wood. I mean, this is so basic stuff. It's unreal compared to nowadays. Jacked it up, put a racing 2-blade bronze prop. Tells you how old you are. Bronze prop on it, a 2-blader cut, and off we went. And my mate was the driver who had the house on the riverbank. And he said to me, he said, we were getting about 50 mile an hour out of this thing, I think. And he said to me, well, yeah, but again, it's nothing these days. And he said to me, go on, he said, have a ski behind it. I said, yeah, that's right. And anyway, of course I'm going to do it, aren't I? That sort of lunatic. So anyway, I got up behind the boat, and on my mono, I was on mono by this time, and we're going along, and it was okay, gradually getting into it. So I'm saying to him, like, faster, faster, faster. And in the end, I said to him, right, give it, give it the beans. and he did. So all of a sudden, the mono ski, from the angle that I've been used to at sort of 40 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, was at one angle. At the speed we were doing, it suddenly goes almost flat to the water, and you can feel how hard the water is under the ski. It really is. So anyway, I pulled out of the wash to do a nice slalom, you know, across and all that sort of stuff. And I hit the wash so fast. It was like when you go normal mono is ba-dum, ba-dum. This was like boom, like that. And I went back across it, and I don't know what happened. I came off, and again, this was much higher speed. My mate reckoned I was doing about 70 miles an hour, and I came off and just bounced for, I don't know, in my head it seemed like half an hour, but you know, that was good water skiing. There was a parachute involved as well, but we better not go into that.
Wow. Well, that sounds another story for another day. But that obviously the hitting of the water at that kind of speed obviously didn't put you off going quickly in boats, and obviously you know, because some people would, you know.
No. Far too thick for that, Jason. Didn't even feel it, mate. You know, when I came off, my mate reckoned about 70 mile an hour. When I came off of that, I mentally I knew I had to slow down. So it was just a matter of, and I mentally folded my arms and like sitting and just going like, well, you know, I just got to wait until I slow down, basically. But once I entered the water, it tries to, at that speed, you're still doing about 30 mile an hour. So it tends to try and rip all your arms and legs off. And I came up to the surface and I was totally disorientated. I didn't have a clue where the boat was. I'm looking around the horizon for the boat, and the boat was actually behind me, going away behind me. That's how, you know, but yeah, you know, all part of the fun.
So these are obviously the days, and powerboat racing. I'm guessing that, you know, you'd never even seen powerboat racing at this point. You know, the powerboat racing was not even in the equation of anything.
No, you're right. To be honest, no, I can't even say I did. Not even watching the telly, or no, it didn't cross my sort of path until I took up with a girl who lived in Wiltshire, funny enough, and I went down there, and she said, she said there's a race meeting on powerboats and that. So I said, oh yeah, you know, at Fairford it was. So I said, well, something to do. Let's go along and have a look. And I realise now, after looking at all the videos and the photos that people have put on Facebook, I was standing at the bottom of the straight at the hairpin. And I stood there and watched. And I mean, these things were, I'd never seen anything like it. You know, I mean, a mono is one thing, but a cat is just something else altogether. And I'm watching these things coming down, trimming in, turning, you know, like unbelievable. Got talking to a chap, and I said, you know what? He said, he said, yeah. He said, these are the OZs. He said, they're hitting 130 miles an hour down that straight. And I just went, bloody, you know. But the funny thing is, it didn't hook me at that time. This was the mid-80s. Did not hook me.
Yeah, whether I was happy. That surprises me, Ray, because that was obviously in the, we call it the glory days now, don't we, of powerboat racing in the UK. And so that surprises me. It didn't grab your attention. I mean, I was hooked from when I was younger at Alton Broad, you know, just by what was going on there. From a kid, and every week, every Thursday night, I was going down there. But you went to Fairford. I mean, Fairford is a brilliant course, and for those people who don't perhaps know the race course, obviously we don't race there anymore, but back in the day we did. There was a couple of islands, one each end, and basically you're racing around a lake with these two islands, and sometimes the boats hit the islands, and all sorts of bizarre, crazy things happen there. But it was a good spectator course.
I've seen a map. I've seen a map of the course, which is how I worked out where I was standing. But you know, it's just a funny thing. I've just remembered actually that it's not the first time that powerboat racing crossed my path. I was 14 years old on a holiday up in Suffolk and Norfolk in 1964, and Mum and Dad, we ended up at Alton Broad. I couldn't even tell you what happened before and after it. I do remember the old runabouts, what they had, what were the forerunners of the monos now. The old runabouts, and there was the hydroplanes, which were something else altogether. And the guy that I remember there was Willie Ryan, and I've spoken to Rixie about this, and he had hydroplanes that were all called eggshells. Eggshell 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was watching eggshell 4, and I always remember he hit something in the broad, which I've done, and it put a hole in his boat. And but it's just
which you've done.
Which I've done, several times. Yeah. So no, that was the other time. But again, at 14, you're more interested in girls, aren't you? You're not gonna get in the boats. But no, I always look back honestly, and I do think, knowing my penchant for getting on the water and speed, particularly speed, I rack my brains. I cannot think why in the 80s at Fairford didn't I then go, right, I'm having some of this. I can't tell you.
It's totally bizarre.
It came much later.
And it did, which we'll come to that in a second, because going back, I take it you've never done car racing, you've never done go-karts, you've never done did any other form of motorsport?
No, I did do karts. Yeah, I did do karts. I was in a club, the South East Essex Kart Club. I was in that, and we did a few races in karts. 210 National. I was gearbox kart, and that was fantastic. That was about 115 mile an hour, that thing. 2 inches from the ground. Fantastic. And I did Formula Ford. But that's just so expensive. It's just so. But I'm sorry to upset any car racers. I respect what they do and that, but I'm sorry, but water is just something else altogether.
Well, it is. And we heard Brian Shelfer say it the other week, and I think even the Haylock said it last week. No 2 laps are the same. You can go around Alton Broad, and then the next lap, was totally different. That's what makes it exciting for drivers. I'm not so sure the spectators kind of get it until they've actually been out. I know we tell them as commentators, what it potentially is like, but you have to feel it for yourself.
I don't think they do, and they couldn't do. And it's something you only realise when you actually start driving the boat. But I think it just occurred to me that the difference between is that the circuit is going to be more or less the same the next lap, every lap. All right, I'm not getting into tyre temperatures and Formula One little stuff. That is a given. When you make a move on somebody, what the circuit. That's one thing you don't have to think about. But on the water, you come up behind somebody and start looking for a way past. You have then to look at the water as well. It's an extra factor. It's an extra challenge. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. What better boat
can I take this? Can I take this silly
haircut? Do you want a haircut? well, while Ray's just readjusting himself, we'll just have a look at Ray in action here. And Ray, you go sort your hair out. Go get a haircut, or just do something. Please.
I can do it. I can do it on screen. That's all right. That's not a problem.
Oh, you can do it on screen. Okay, I can do it on. Oh, there we go. Look at that.
We'll get rid of that.
The lockdown hair is now revealed. He has a quick comb over. Now, I have to stop you there, Ray. Why is Ellen not there doing that for you?
Well, that's good. That's a good point. She's in lockdown like I am, so she's up there. But there is something that goes with this. Actually, this thing. After every race, I have to get on the phone and say, "Hello, babe. I'm still alive. See you later. What's for dinner?"
Yeah, that's the ring home. For those people who don't know who Ellen is, that Ellen is part of Ray's wonderful pit crew that he's got. There's Ellen and Jack, and of course Eddie. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. But so they take care of you. They obviously pamper you after your race.
They do. The business with the hair and the phone is when we finish racing and we're back in the pits, the boat's all strapped down, ready to go home. We're off to the clubhouse for a jar and to collect our trophies.
And you're getting quite good at that. these days?
Oh well, I don't know. It's really, I don't know how much skill is involved in all this. Like, what I do know is that if you turn up every Thursday, and wild horses wouldn't keep me away from Alton Broad on the Thursday. It's about being consistent, and it's a bit about being regular. And I think that's halfway. That's halfway to a club championship anyway. So.
Yeah, and for those people who don't know, we race every week. What do we have? About 18 races, I think, don't we? And
yeah.
It's weekly. It's throughout the summer. It's brilliant stuff. And yeah, like you say, consistency really is the key factor. But Ray, let's have a look then at you in action as we just watch a minute of your racing career. Well, some of Ray in action there, and of course the mono days is where it all began for Ray. And you know, monoholes, we were saying earlier, is what better way to start racing than in a monohole? Because monoholes, you get to read the water. Some of the best drivers have come from the grassroots of racing, come from mono powerboats. So, Ray, tell us a little bit about how you actually got into racing in the first place, because you've already told us that, you weren't grabbed by the first time you looked at boats. You had to look at boats the second time at Fairford. That wasn't good enough. So, how on earth did you get involved in racing then?
Much in life, it's pure chance. But before I go into that, I would like to make the point, when you say about grassroots monos, I myself think that really hydros are the real grassroots at Alton Broad, certainly. I've yet to have a go in one.
We can arrange that.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Look at Shulver. I mean, Shulver's doing it.
They scare the life out of me. It's a plank of wood, isn't it? Come on.
You'll love it. We've seen you in the F2. That scares the life out of me. The dunk test would scare the life out of me. So you'd be fine.
They're not scary. They're fantastic. No, anyway, what I'm trying to say is I've got such a healthy kind of admiration for all of our hydro guys. I mean, I see them. They battle away. I can't ever forget the Europeans, when there was about 16 of them off the pontoon is Euro Championships. It was just fantastic. I mean, I might do F2, but that doesn't get the other classes. But going back to your question, yes, my actual racing career started. I don't know what year now. Well, it would have been 2008. That's right. 2008, which is 10 years after we moved up to Suffolk from Essex. And I saw a job in the paper for a job at Alton Water Sports Centre on the reservoir. And I thought, oh, what's that all about? Sounds interesting. Wasn't doing a lot at the time. So I phoned up and ended up talking to John O'Brett, who at the time was the manager. And we got chatting, and we got onto boats, and I told him, how mad I was on boats, etc., etc. He told me he raced them. Cut a long story short, went down for the interview, got the job, and Jono says to me, right, he said, we're going to get you in a race boat. I went, all right, here we go. And the story was, they dug a lightweight Bristol out of a hedge.
Wow.
I don't know who they bought it off. The red one you've just shown
Yep. Yeah.
photos of.
Yeah.
They dug it out of a hedge somewhere. Bob Brett did a lot of work on rigging it. I bought an engine, a 90 Yam, off of eBay for 400 quid in bits, and that's what got me racing. So I mean,
I've just brought
I
up on the
look back.
screen, Ray, the boat. I mean, this mono, you know, to look at it, I mean, you guys must have done a brilliant job restoring it if you dragged it out of a hedge, because there it is
No,
in all its glory.
it wasn't particularly restored, not at all. It was a lightweight one, which really was its only advantage when I came to racing against my nemesis, Pete Mantripp, in his immaculately prepared Tornado. My one was held together and gaffer, but it got it in very cheaply. It got me into it, and really from then it was a natural progression. The next thing that happened was an F2 came up for sale. Andy Gore was selling it, and it was the one that Robin Day had.
Yeah.
And Ian Smith had it. Ian Smith had it before him, and I've still got the boat, even though it leaks, it's damaged. But that was such a fantastic boat for me. It really was. It gave you so much confidence in it.
We'll talk about that boat in a second, Ray. I'm interested because and it's your fault because you dragged up the name, and you dragged up the name Pete Mantripp. Now so you're going head to head with my cousin Pete. I want to get Pete on the show actually. It's Thomas next week, but you're head to head with Pete. I mean, he was from hydros originally, and then he had a bit of a break, and then he come back. He went into monos, and then all of a sudden you're the newbie. You're coming in. How hard a driver was he to compete against?
Well, there is not too much of actual kind of head to head because of the handicaps. I mean, his boat was obviously quicker than mine, so I got off on the start of the race before him. But my endearing memories of him is after about halfway through the race, I would start looking over my shoulder and seeing that black visor. Just, oh no, here he comes.
So the visor is quite intimidating. Then you like what they say about Ferrari, isn't it? They say if you see the red Ferrari nose cone in your mirrors, then just get out of the way. And that's how I would imagine what it's like having Pete behind you.
Yeah, it is. But after a few races, it just became inevitable. To be honest, I had a prop which I didn't know. I didn't know anything about. I certainly wasn't getting. I was getting about 1,000 revs. I was revving at about 5,000. Pete told me he was doing 6.5. I never had the right prop on the boat. The only time I managed to get him was out of the turns for a few seconds, and he must agree with me on this. A few seconds I got on him, purely because the boat was so light. I mean, the boat was actually, when Bob Brett set it up for me with the 90 on the back, it was undrivable. We went down to the River Orwell and tested it out. And I mean, I've had a bit of mono experience, and I've been through some fair old seas out in the North Sea, what we used to do. I couldn't drive this thing. I said to him, "You're joking." I said, "It needs weight in the front." And in the end, I think we ended up with about 26, 28 kilos in the front, which is a terrible thing to do, put weight in a boat, but it's the only way you could drive it. Trust me. It was just undrivable.
So, having known the Brett brothers, and because they used to experiment with their boats, didn't they? They used to come down with all sorts of contraptions. You must have had the best outfit out of the Brett brothers camp, shall we say?
No, not really. They did have a variety of boats. Do you remember the bat boat
The
which they
bat boat, the
turned
much
up?
talked about bat boat, yeah.
Yeah, they had a bit of fun getting that past the scrutineers, I can tell you. But that's still on YouTube. I saw that. I've seen that in the video. That's still there. And there was about 5 or 6 of us, all in monos. It was fantastic to watch that. But no, I wouldn't say mine was the best boat at all. It was it was what it was. I don't know. It was fast. It would have been faster if I could have got it sorted, but again, I didn't know really what I was doing with it. But it just got me. It basically got me into the club, and I won a race or two, which is fantastic when you're starting out.
So you had the mono, you done the mono, and then see, it's a bit fuzzy in my head what kind of happened to you after that, because in my head you kind of disappeared a little bit, and then when you came back, it was the Formula 2. And for me, like the return of Ray Birnie, he's racing again, and it's in a Formula 2. Totally, bizarre. Where did this, come from? How did that all come about? Why an F2? I guess,
Well,
it's the goal of every powerboat racer to get to the top, isn't it? But, Formula 2?
Much as I love the Brett brothers, all of them. I mean, they're fantastic guys, really are. I had a time of my life with them, honestly. But one of the last races I had with that mono, the Bristol, was I was going down the straight to the wherry, went around the wherry, and the bolts through the seat pulled through the fiberglass. So all of a sudden, I was like slung to one side around the turn, and I thought, that's not too good, but we'll carry on. So I ended up with the seat. The seat is now completely detached from the boat, so that was fine in a straight line because I could still just about keep my foot flat out foot on the pedal, flat out, and I was hanging onto the steering wheel just because otherwise I'd have ended up at the back of the boat, and that was fine. Apart from the corners where you got slung to the side, but that was okay. That actually was good F2 practice when I think about it. So I did a couple of laps like that, hanging onto the steering wheel, and then the steering wheel spokes came out of the rim. So then I had a steering wheel doing that, and a seat doing that, and even I stuck my hand up and pulled off the course. So I just think I needed to move up a rung
you needed something that is going to definitely secure you into a boat. Just while you're talking about the things that happen in monos, just backtracking a little bit. Something about you almost became part of the Lowestoft and Alton Broad Fire Brigade when one of the Brett brothers was on fire down at the Wherry Turn. But what was that about?
Well, that
certainly
was
your boat was the right colour to be a fire engine, but I
just didn't have the flashing light. Well, no, this was just another incident in the sort of checkered history of the Bretts. Something always happened. I think my first race, I followed Jono into the Wherry Turn where he barrel rolled, and then I think it was another race. Bob had bought an very rare Mercury straight six short shaft, 1967 engine. Anyway, he got it strapped on the back of his boat, and we all set off. And about a couple of laps in, I went round the Wherry Turn, and I looked and I saw Bob on fire. He had a little fire at the back of the engine, and I sort of, in the split second you have to make a decision, I thought, what do I do? Do I go over there and help him put it out, or what? And I could see the rescue boat in the corner of my eye, so that really made up my mind. I carried on with my race. I came round again the second time round the Wherry, and he's still on fire. The rescue boat is still standing off of him, and he's trying to get the fire out with a paddle. I'm looking and going. Oh, anyway, I thought, well, the rescue boat's in attendance. I haven't got to worry about it. I haven't got to sacrifice the race, so I carried on. Cut a long story short, I caught up with Bob after the race. I said, what the hell was going on there then? I said, you know, did rescue put the fire out? He said, no. He said, and I don't want to cause any problems with anybody. It's probably too old now. But he said to me, he said, no. He said, the rescue boat come up. He said, I yelled at him, give me the fire extinguisher. And the bloke in the rescue boat says, no, you're not having that. That belongs in the rescue boat. I couldn't.
Well, you know, we were thinking about the budget at the time. You know, there was plenty of water around, so they're thinking about, you know, club funds. I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah, he got the fire. He lived to fight another day, so that's all right.
So after seeing fires, after your seat falling apart all around you, you thought, right, time to get myself strapped in. As you said earlier, you know, it was that Burgess boat. It was the boat actually, because Tim Lewis brought the boat to the club. It hadn't done a lot. I think it had done a few record runs up at Windermere by another driver, but not Tim. And then Tim brought it to the club. And then, as Tim does, he moves on to other boats and things. Tim was really good at it. And then Ian Smith, as you said, Robin Day, and then yourself. Now, you know, obviously you would have had your eyes on this boat. Was that the case? But had you been watching it keenly and thought, I wouldn't mind that, or not?
Not at all. No, I didn't know the history of it at all. Literally, I think it was Bob Brett phoned me up and he said, have you seen the club website? He said, there's a F2 on there. So I looked at it. There's the ad for it, and Andy Gore was selling it. So I phoned up, and me and Bob went up there and looked at it, and Andy ran the engine up. Funny enough, I sat in the cockpit, and when they put the canopy down, I thought, oh, I don't know if I can handle this. It's a funny old feeling when you that. I'm not saying I suffer from claustrophobia, but it was a little bit off-putting. But I just thought, well, you're going to do it, so just give the man the money.
There isn't a lot of room in there. I mean, for those people who've never sat in a safety cell, you know, how much room isn't there in that boat once that lid goes down?
Well, if I can demonstrate in that Burgess, the first one, I could not do. I could do that. I could not do any further than that. That's how tight they are. But once you set off, once your adrenaline kicks in, really, it doesn't matter.
And obviously that boat then, that got you started in F2. And along the way, because I'm trying to think, because that boat didn't have crash boxes initially when you had the boat, and there was a few rule changes along the way. There was a cell rule where all the cells had to be registered, and there was the crash boxes. There was all sorts of things. Just as you come into F2, you must have thought, "Oh my goodness, this is all hard work now."
Not really. It was a little bit disappointing because this was 2013, I think, in the beginning. The first test practice session at Stuartby, we turned up there, and Jenny sort of looked. Jenny was officer of the day, so it's down to her. She's responsible at the end of the day, and she looked up on the UIM website and couldn't find the cell number, so we weren't allowed on the lake. There's no point in making a song and dance about that. If anything happened, if I was let out on the lake and something happened, and then that would be on Jenny, and that's not on. So we went home, disappointed, but whatever. And I learned something about it, and I ended up getting the cockpit had to be strengthened to 1,000 Newton meters, I think it was, and at the same time I had the crash boxes put on. So and that took really half the season before I actually got up and running with that F2. So it was sort of middle of the 2013 season.
And you say about the safety cell and having to be strengthened, and I've seen accidents, and we've all seen accidents where sometimes the cell hasn't quite worked because maybe the age or because of the strength as some of the earlier cells, like you say, they weren't quite as strong. So You know, I think at the time, you know, just to be a little bit controversial, I think maybe Jenny took a little bit of stick where possibly it wasn't really necessary. Because I know personally she had the safety of all of the drivers at heart, you know. And like you quite rightly say, you know,
you
didn't want
can't
that on
do
her.
that now. You can't do that now. You're applying old-fashioned thinking to modern day life, and you can't turn around and go, "Oh, that's all right," you know, blah blah blah. It's not all right, because if Jenny, I say, let me on the lake with a boat that was not up to spec, something had happened, then she's quite likely to be sued. We have this problem all the time in the club. The scrutineers are really twitchy about you know, letting anything go that's not 100%, in case, just in case, the outside chance that you might get sued. That's why. No, you, Jenny was 100%. She was 100% right.
So with the cockpit done, with the crash boxes done, and then that half a season kind of getting to learn the boat, getting to learn the characteristics of the boat. So how difficult, I think I asked Brian Shulver this the other week, but how difficult was it to adapt from mono? You know, first of all, you're in a totally open surrounding, there's just nothing there. And then all of a sudden, as I said, you're in that tight boat, and you've got trim buttons. And how quickly did you adapt to that style of driving?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. We got the boat fully legal, and we went back to Stuartby for my first ever go in a cat. And I think, bear in mind, I did have experience of offshore boats, getting on the plane and that sort of thing, and the mono, the Bristol as well by that time. So actually, a cat will, as soon as you hit the throttle, a cat will get on the plane probably quicker than a mono, because just the way it's built. But after that, it's a question of learning the cornering power, and they are phenomenal machines. I mean, I've not found the limit. I've not found the limit on any of my boats, and I wouldn't really want to. But I mean, whoever designed it, it's a toss-up. I've done some inquiries. It's a toss-up between Billy Seabold and Renato Molinari as to who actually designed it. I don't know. It was probably developed between the two of them. But whoever it is, I'd love to shake their hand, because, and I'll get goosebumps now, because those boats are just incredible to handle. Going back to Stuartby, what happened was, on that particular day, there was only 2 F2s that turned up. Jenny was officer of the day again. Colin was on first, and then she said to me, "Off you go." So I had 20 minutes by myself with Stuartby Lake all to myself. And it took me sort of about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to kind of start to work out, to trim in, to get the turns. And in the end of the session, I was coming flat out down to that sort of bottom turn that runs along the bank, that one. But I just started to get the cornering sorted out. The actual cornering, my confidence in the cornering came later that year at Alton Broad. And I remember a series of weeks, a series of Thursdays, and I was just kind of pushing myself, not the boat, the boat, you will break before the boat does. I was pushing myself with the boat, particularly at the wherry, and I was coming down there like flat out and leaving the brakes, what you call, you know, the down trim to put the brakes. I was leaving it later and later and later, to the point where your head is like telling you, you know, for sake, brake, brake. And I was going past that. I was going beyond that. And I was surprising myself. And I was saying, well, that little voice is just rubbish. Don't take notice of that little voice. The next lap, I left it even later. And I got to the point where I'm not backing off until I see the buoy. Until I see the buoy on the left-hand side, then I hit the trim button and go around the turn. You know.
So I have a confession to make, because I know on a few occasions when I've actually took a wander down the park, whether I've been racing that evening or if I'd have, just decided to have a wander down the park, I've watched you at the Wherry turn, and it's probably Mike Nolan or my cousin Simon, who, by the way, Tate is one of your biggest fans. But I hold my hand up, and we were waiting for you to have an accident. We were waiting for you to barrel roll because we'd seen you get more confident, and we'd watched you sling it in. Yeah, he's going to barrel roll. He's going to barrel roll that, but you kind of never did.
No, you won't. You won't, because the only thing, if you look at various videos, and there was one old video on Facebook recently. I think it was an F4 cat, and he barrel rolled at the Wherry, and you can see quite clearly there was a wave that did it. He went, and it needs something to turn the boat over. If the water's flat or reasonably flat, right, it will just go round. But having said that, it does take, it's the driver, not the boat. The driver has to have the confidence. It takes time to get, put it this way, motorbikes, MotoGP riders, if you listen to the commentary, it's all about them having confidence in the front end. It's said time and time again. He's got confidence in the front end. You can't stuff a MotoGP bike into a corner at 150 miles an hour unless you're sure that front end's going to grip. And it's exactly the same with an F2, but on water.
So you got the confidence with the boat, as we found out. You've done club racing. You've done you've done a season or so of club racing. But if it was, 2013? If you got a boat in 2013, just trying to think of when you went to Sri Lanka, because we'll come on to that in a second. But there was I don't want to use the word rumour, but there was whispers going around the club at that time. Nigel Hall, John Masters, they were sort of saying, this race could happen in Sri Lanka. The guy called Prazan is going to come across and he's going to visit the club. And, me being a little bit skeptical, you see things all the time, or you hear things all the time, and you think, yeah, that's never ever going to happen. That is not going to happen. Prazan won't come to the club. Why would he come to the club? Why would we go to Sri Lanka? How that is not possible. And then all of a sudden, Nigel rocks up with Prazan, and you kind of think, well, he's having a look around the boats. This is going to happen. This might actually happen now, but no, I've seen it all before. That's not going to happen. And Ray, tell us about the fact that it happened.
Really, yeah, I was exactly the same as you. I think it was Nigel or John Masters, one of the two, came to me, and they said about, we're looking for drivers to go to Sri Lanka. People in that boats, and I was exactly the same. Oh, that's pie in the sky. That's like a holiday of a lifetime type of thing, Sri Lanka. But yeah, it did happen. It did happen. Prasan was passionate about introducing powerboat racing to Sri Lanka. And yeah, we arrived, 4 boats in 2 containers. We flew out there, and it was just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. We trained, I say trained well. The deal was, I think, I said to you the other day on the phone, the lake in Colombo in Sri Lanka is controlled by the military, as is a lot of the country. And I think Prasan got a deal with the military so he could use the lake. And the thing was that, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Your guys are going to have to train up or give a little ride to our guys in the armed forces, which amounted to half a dozen from the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the police, and I don't know if you want to expand on this, knowing what you know. A little select group from of civilians. Yeah. Well, all the armed forces, being disciplined kind of thing, did what they were told. I don't think none of us, not myself, Nigel, John, or Barry, were over the moon with the idea of having people, well, the Navy guys had jet skis and that, but that's nothing like an F2. Some of the Army guys probably never been in a boat before, and we're supposed to let these guys loose on the lake in an F2. But I came up with the idea in the hotel the day before of having a pace boat, me as a pace boat, and me going off, and the guy, whoever it is, the Army, Navy, whatever, in one of the other boats, follows me around. I watch him in the mirrors. If he's okay, I think he's okay, I'll increase the speed gradually. It worked fine with all the guys in the forces, because they listened and they did what they told. Unfortunately, we then came to this little select band of civilians, one of which was the president's son. I forget his name now. The surname of the president is Rajapaksa. I can't remember this guy's first name. He owns one of the TV stations in Sri Lanka, and I'd done a little bit of homework on him before we went, and I found out that him and his mates on the island have got a few Lamborghinis between them, and they go out at night in Colombo when there's traffic has all gone to bed, and they have little night races. So I just thought, yeah, okay, just bear that in mind. So he gets set up in one of the F2s. I'm the pace boat, and off we go. And I'm watching him, and he's obviously okay with power engines and all the rest of it. But I don't know about on water. But anyway, we go around for one lap, and he overtakes me. So no, you've just broken the rules, Sonny, and I don't care who you are. So I went after. I cut across. We had a course laid out on the lake, a big course. He went around the top turn. I cut across the course, and the way I felt, I was so angry, I would have T-boned him, to be honest. And I went in front of him, 90 degrees in front, cut him off, stopped him, and I went back to the pontoon, right? This is me with the president's son. Anyway,
lucky not to be locked up.
We were lucky to get out of the country alive. That's how I look upon it. But anyway, I'll tell you what happened. He went back to the pontoon. I took up my station as pace boat for the next boat. Obviously, he was going to get out of the boat, and the next boat was going to get in. And I went up the lake. I looked round, and he hadn't made the pontoon. I thought, oh, you twat. Anyway, I looked at the boat again, and at the back of the boat, and I thought, that's not right. That's down at the back end. I thought, and it was a fiberglass one, and all the F2 drivers who drive fiberglass boats will know what I'm talking about. The pop-ups on the hull at the back, yeah, it was leaking, letting in water. So I looked, and as I looked, I thought, shit, anyway, I looked across to see if our guys had spotted it, and of course they had. Nigel and John were on it. And I looked at the crane driver, was running towards the crane that we had to launch the boats and trade them out. He's running to the crane. I looked across to my right in the middle of the lake, and the Navy guys, who were our rescue in a dory, they had woken up and seen what was going on, because for Christ's sake, that's their president's son, They started coming. They could see him getting on the plane, so they were coming as well. But it was a big lake, and I'm thinking to myself, in a prime spectator position I had, and I'm going, who's going to win? Is the crane going to arrive first, or are the Navy guys going to? It was interesting, and for a few seconds, I wouldn't have bet. They were, it was a close run. But anyway, I thought to myself, hang on a minute, we need a bit of a backup here. So I shot down alongside him and switched my engine off to give him another option to get out of the boat if it did go under and get onto my boat. So I'm alongside him, and I tell you, and I said this to you the other night, I will never forget this. I don't know how, but I think it was John, Nigel, or Barry, one of them, managed to get from the bank onto the boat, and the crane came down with the slings, with the snap hooks, and the last snap hook went on, bang, like that, as the engine went under the water. I could just see the top of the engine was just disappearing under the lake. and Chummy, the president's son, was still sitting in the boat.
And at this time, everyone was sweating and getting a bit of a panic on, or were they just gonna, wow, whatever?
Don't. Well, no, it was his own fault. Well, no, it wasn't really, but it was one of those sort of instant karma things. You know, you broke the rules, you're going to get a fright.
Well, let's just have a look at the little promotional video which you feature in, which is from Sri Lanka. We'll just sit back for a minute or two and just enjoy this. And when I say action, this is a different kind of action. This is the kind of action that you don't really want to be seeing or being part of. And Ray knows what's coming up here. So what we're seeing is the back view, and then we see Ray Birnie. He stopped, and then the boat starts to sink. Now this is at Sturepy Springs back in 2014. As you can see, the rescue on hand there, and Ray, for whatever reason, which he will tell us about in a moment, the boat starts to sink. He gets out of the boat, you can see. Doesn't want to get wet, doesn't want to get his hair wet, that's for sure, but alas, too late, the boat's gone, it's gone under, and Ray Birnie ends up getting wet. And there you can see the reason why now, the damage to the boat, the big hole in the left-hand sponson. So Ray is going to tell us all about that in a moment. He's just popped off for a second, but as you can see, that boat completely submerged. So, Ray, we've just watched you sinking at Sturepy Lake at 2014 Sturepy Sprints. What happened? Why did you have a hole in the boat? What happened there?
You know, a bit here because there's a good friend of mine that was involved in that, and I'll tell you his take on it, which I'm quite prepared to accept. We all went off from the line. Bear in mind, we had that stupid rule where we had to give the Optimaxes 5 seconds. That's changed now. So there was like 2 waves went off. We were the second wave, about half dozen boats. And I got to the top turn. I'm always one for obeying the rules. So when you get to the first turn, you have to stay in your lane, imaginary lanes around that first turn. After that, that's a free-for-all. So this is what I did. I got round the top turn at Sturepy and had an almighty bang in the side from another boat, enough to make me sort of stop, back off, have a look. I thought steering's all right, it feels all right. So I carried on. Of course, I was last at this time. So I spent, this was a 12-lap race. I spent the next 10 laps flat out, funny enough, trying to catch up. And then the penultimate lap, I came again around that top turn, headed down to the right-hander, and just something, everybody knows what I'm talking about here, just something makes you, hang on a minute, and I looked in my mirrors, and in the left-hand mirror, there was like a fountain of water just coming up out the deck, where the hull had cracked, the sponson had cracked, water coming in under pressure at that speed, had nowhere to go, so it's punched its way out the deck. And I thought to myself, well, that's not too clever. So I looked, and the rescue boat was right there. And you can see me. I just made a beeline. I went off the course, obviously, and made a beeline for the rescue boat. And you saw how quick it sunk.
Yeah, very, very quickly. But there's nothing you can do at that point. You've got a hole in your boat, and there's only one way that's going to end.
What happened then was again, it's one of these fantastic things that you look back on, and it's just so you end up laughing at it. The boat went down. I didn't get out of it sort of quick enough to get into the rescue boat. I ended up in the water. So the rescue guys come along with that drop down front boat, the boat that, you know, where they float you in. I think Osprey invented that. So I was floated back by the diver, and as I'm going back into that drop down front of the rescue boat, my head kind of goes up like that, and into view comes the green light TV drone, which they've seen what's happening, so they've hovered above me to get the whole scenario, and that footage ended up on Sky Sports 3, I think.
Yeah, it certainly did. So it's there forever. I've got it on my laptop, and you know, obviously, they were good days, powerboat GP days, when obviously Jason, you know, got everything filmed, and like, brilliant times. And talking of times, Ray, I just noticed that we've gone over the hour, but that doesn't matter because I want to talk about your team. But first of all, what I want to do, Ray, is we'll have a little look at your team for a minute in this video clip. So there we see Ray in action, and also some of the team. Ray, you know, your team, Ellen, Jack, and Eddie, of course. Eddie, who's got a complete background from Matthew Lockwood, Carl Wigg, obviously yourself. You know, he's knowledge of hydros and Formula 2. You know, he was there with Carl. So he brings that side of things. Ellen makes sure that you're strapped into the boat, and along with Jack, making sure that you're all prepared and ready to go. I mean, they're a great team. How did you find the team? How did that all gel together?
Oh dear, you know, it's just one of those things I can't really remember. I obviously knew Eddie for, well, when I first joined the club. He's, you know, just one of those characters. I do remember meeting Ellen. Jack is sort of reasonably recently. It's just one of those things that happened. You know, it wasn't pre-planned. You know, Eddie, I don't know, with Eddie, when you're in an F2, if you can imagine, you're strapped into an F2, you can't move, you can't really do anything other than drive the boat. And when you come back into the pits, time and again, to see Eddie standing there with a pole ready to catch you is the most. It just reassures you so much, you know. It really does. Without these guys, I'd be, well, you just couldn't do it. You just got to be floundering. You just couldn't do it. Simple as that. Everybody knows the value of a good pit crew, you know. Ellen being the engine specialist.
And,
Well,
of course, they can't be
on
that bad at pit crew because
on
you know, you've
on
won 2 club
on
champions.
yeah, on spark plugs anyway. She is.
Ah,
And yeah, and she knows a spark plug, that girl. And Jack is the radio man, you know, which
the
again,
radio. I'm glad you mentioned the radio, Ray, because do you listen or do you have selective deafness? Because Ellen tells me that, you know, sometimes you can be spoken to, but you don't respond.
no. What that is, I went through a succession of headphones and those sort of things. I bought the best radio, Motorola. I bought the best headphone. It didn't work on the Vox, is it Vox? When you speak, voice activated,
Yeah.
didn't work. I ended up with a pair of cheap earbuds, and they work perfectly. So no, it was nothing to do with it. I'm grateful, and the reason I went for a radio is simple. There was a meeting on a Thursday. I was so pleased with myself. I thought I'd done really, really well. I came back to the pits. We're going to put the boat on the trailer. I'm going to comb your hair. I'm going to make the phone call. And Pete was there. And I said, "Oh, Pete, you know, how's it going?" I said, that was, you know, all right. He said, "No." He said, "That wasn't a good." He said, "You went through 7 red flags." I had no idea, which is the tunnel vision when you're in an
Tunnel
F2.
vision.
You're
Yeah,
just
that's right.
looking,
Yeah.
you're looking at it. I had no idea. Obviously, I saw the last one, but I had no idea. And that shocked me. That really shocked me that night. And I thought, right, I'm not having this. I know I'm not that good on flags. I'm better than I was, but I'm not that good. And I went out and I got a radio so that I've got a backup. I've got someone. Funny enough, every single incident, every single yellow flag or red flag since I bought the radio, I've seen myself. But I have Jack in my ear saying to me, "Incident at the wherry," or blah, 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 whatever. Yeah.
It's always good to have that backup, that second sort of
Yeah.
pair of eyes,
Yeah.
and you know they're looking
Yeah.
out for you. So it seems good. It seems great that you got that kind of team. What I also wanted to mention is not only at the race circuit does the team support you, but you know you've sat on management as our promotions guy. You know you were there doing the publicity, and something which you were quite passionate about. You got heavily involved. I know certainly we done a lot of. We done the precincts, didn't we? We done loads of precinct. Went to Norwich in the city centre there. And Hevingham Hall, which I know was your baby. You know, when we went there, I briefly touched on it the week before with the Haylocks. But you know, Ray, I mean, it's good to see you out there promoting, taking time out. You know, some guys just choose to race, but you're getting right stuck in there and taking your boat along with your team to these events, explaining. And I bet they can't believe what they're seeing at times. Some people have never seen a powerboat before.
Well, no, that's right. I mean, I just thought that, you know, there was not a lot of advertising. Advertising is very expensive, like local advertising in papers, magazines, and that sort of thing. So what we did was to actually, and it's probably better advertising, take our boats. We've usually managed to get a selection, an F2, my F2, Brian Block's F4, a couple of junior boats, mainly with the Haylocks, the odd hydroplane, Scott Gillings, I think, Rixie, Paul Gillings, Karen and Tony. They've all sort of chipped in, and it's become it was quite a sort of regular thing, you know, and we all treat it half as a social occasion, and obviously anybody that comes up and starts asking questions. I don't know how many. What we did get a lot of was people coming up and saying, "Oh, you still race at Alton Broad?
Yeah.
If I had £1 for every time I heard that, I'd be a rich man." So we do our best to, and you can't. I said this at management meetings. You cannot possibly measure what we've done, if anything, to increase the spectators as a result of showing our boats. What I do know is at least one junior did take up the sport as a direct result of us at the Framlingham show. But yeah, as you say, Heveningham, Norwich Forum, Lowestoft precinct. I think there's a football club as well in Lowestoft. I think we did a little show there. Yeah, and it's great. I really enjoy doing it.
And it's great to see that you got your team of people that because I know that you had the gazebo specially designed for, I think between yourself and Brian had that all done up in the club logo, and it's just great to see publicity, in whatever format, just getting the sport out into the public domain is absolutely superb. Well, Ray, time is absolutely flying by. You've got a birthday to celebrate, but I know you certainly wanted to thank a few people and give some people a mention in quite a touching way.
I did actually, yeah. I've just got a little list. These are people who have had an effect on me since I joined the club. I don't really want to sort of create a downer, but they just need mentioning. One, of course, is Sue Stavely, who was our race secretary, and sort of me and Sue had a kind of a running sort of relationship where I can't help it. I'm one of the most absent-minded people on the planet. I come into that clubhouse after racing and I go straight to the bar, right? That's just automatic, right? I was straight to the bar. The number of times that Sue would come to the bar, give me a clip round the ear and go, "You haven't signed out," right? I kind of started to get the hang of coming in and not going to the bar, but going straight, to sign off. It's probably about 50-50 at the moment. That's how it is with me. But anyway, she was a lovely lady. And I will say this, that one of my enduring memories of her work was in the latter part of her treatment for the cancer she had. She came in that clubhouse with all her hair falling out. She had no wig. No, we don't want that. We're not having a wig. This is me. She was saying, "This is me," right? And that
I remember her saying
just
that, yeah.
Just blown away. I was just blown away with that lady, and it was just a crying shame. Anyway, move on. Next one is Dennis Meadows. He's just a great guy. He was just a lovely fella. He was like an ambassador really for the club. He'd go around, he'd talk to anybody, that guy, the spectators, impart a bit of knowledge. And I think something like that, if you go and watch this powerboat racing, say you're on holiday, which a lot of people are, yeah, you don't know about it. And have someone like that explaining just a few bits and pieces makes your evening. That's what I think. And he was so good at that. He really, really was. The last guy is Jim Smith, he was our gate man, as we all know. And he also used to tow my boat down to Coleman's and back if I was lucky, yeah, with his mobility scooter, little tow hook on the back. But unfortunately, health and safety sort of, put the kibosh on that. So but the last thing I was going to say is, like, having said all that, paid that tribute to people, the life moves on, ever onwards. And I said this to you earlier, that I've had a good crack at F2 now, and I've reached the point, I think, where I'm able now to help new drivers that come along. And there's one guy in particular. We sort of met up between lockdowns. I think he came
now
up.
Watch what you say, because he's watching. So I know who it is. Yeah. He wishes you happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, him and about 90 others on Facebook. Yeah, yeah. Thanks. That was another thing I did forget to say. Thanks to everybody who posted on Facebook for me. That really did mean so much. It was lovely. Yeah, it's Brett Croxon. He's going to be our latest. And if his work on Tom Roberts' his cat is anything to go by, he's pretty serious about it. I tell you. So basically, I'm going to be on hand for him if we go to Stuartby or practice. I'll try and get him going in the boat. He's well experienced in monos anyway, but a cat is something a little bit different. And I'll just try and steer him in the right direction. Maybe we'll get to the dunk test together. Who knows? Paperwork, that sort of stuff. Richard Grant as well. I mentioned him. He's working hard on his boat. He's very enthusiastic, despite his nightmare at the beginning with blown engines and gearboxes. So yeah, I'm on hand. I have been helping him anyway on the phone, so I'll be there for him. So yeah, just thanks to my long-suffering pit crew.
They love you, really.
They do. Thanks to Rescue, I'm on first name terms with them now, as you can imagine. All the great guys. We couldn't do it, and we wouldn't do it without you. That's for sure. But last and by no means least at all, a special mention for our Commodore, Pete Mantripp. Now, I've been with the club long enough. I've been through you get to know more and more as you the more time you spend in a club, obviously. And it did hit a bad patch a few years ago. We all know that numbers were down, money was down, and everything. But Pete came along. He was voted in as Commodore, a landslide victory. And as far as I'm concerned, he's turned the club around 100%. It's just amazing now, the shape it's in now. We've done one European hydros. We've got a Worlds to look forward to, GT15, and another hydro thing. So without Pete, I don't think we'd be anywhere near the shape we are now today.
Yeah, and I can only second that. And maybe sometimes people don't see where he's coming from, but I know where he's coming from because I was there right at the start of when he was watching boat racing, because we used to stand together in the park. So I totally get his passion, and it stayed with him forever, and I don't think that will never ever go away. Same with the likes of Brian Shelfer, it stayed with him. Brian Block, another classic example. Rixie from the Hydros. It seems like, once you're in and once you're hooked, you want to see the sport progress, survive, and develop. And I think that's where we're at kind of with the club at the moment, with all the things that's going on in the world with the COVID. Hopefully now with Boris's roadmap to Stewart or whatever it's called. Oh no, recovery. Roadmap to recovery. Hopefully we can now start to think about, we might need a dunk test, we might need driving license, we might need this, we might need that. And you might need to get yourself sorted out. So we are, getting ourselves nearer the time to start racing again, I think, Ray.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, like everybody else, we're just waiting for the off. But it's got to be done right this time. They've had 3 lockdowns now. It's got to be right. We don't want to be going into another one, that's for sure. So no, we'll be there. Just be patient. We'll be there.
Well, listen, Ray, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't thank you enough to take time out on your birthday to join us here on the show. I have to confess, I did know that it was your birthday, and it was kind of pre-planned, and I winged it a bit, hoping that you would say yes. And luckily you did. And there is the birthday cake. Everyone, you all need to join in and wish Ray now a happy birthday. As you can see, he's only 3 years old by the candle. So enjoy your birthday cake, Ray. Enjoy it. Now, does he blow it all out in one breath? Here we go. He does. Look at that.
Put light on again.
So I think that's a medical. I think you've now passed the medical. I think that's all you need to do to pass for this year. He's worn out. But seriously, Ray, thank you very, very much indeed for taking your time here this evening to join us. And there's been lots of love for you, and a lot of people saying what a lovely guy you are. I know that anyway because I know you. And enjoy the rest of your birthday celebrations.
Will do. Thanks to everybody. Take care. Stay safe till it's all over.
We're coming up then next week. We have Thomas Mantripp, and he'll join us on the show. In the meantime, as Ray said, stay safe and see you all next week.